capital budget. I've asked Frank and his team to give us really just kind of high level overview. We're not going through every capital project tonight of where we are just in a general funding standpoint. From a capital budget standpoint, we'll have an opportunity in a couple weeks to go into a much deeper dive. Frank and the mayor and his team right now, along with members of council, are just trying to assess really what the funding gap is as we know it right now. So I'll turn it over to Frank and his team, and then we'll go from there.
Thank you, Council President. You captured that very well. In fact, I don't have much remarks. You kind of said what I needed to say. So David Anspach, our acting capital project manager, momentarily is going to go over on a very, as you said, a broad view of our current capital projects that are currently in motion. So when he goes over this, we won't go over specific projects, but we did break out this spreadsheet into 3 categories. So when we go over it, so there's no sticker shock feel, or we don't lose perspective of what we're discussing. The spreadsheet that he'll go over is, we'll go over the general capital projects that are already currently in motion. And then we segregated what may need to be done at the Pagoda. And then we have the third item, which is the proposed police training and operations center. So like I said, we're only going over the broad sense to give you an idea of, a budget analysis on how much has been budgeted and how much is available. So David, I see you're on the Zoom call. This is your cue to weigh in. We have Jamar Kelly, I believe, in the call also. But David, you want to share the spreadsheet, or, it's up to you.
I'm sure. If you'd like me to do the screen share.
I'm sorry, but I did email this afternoon, Council, the spreadsheets, and I apologize that we couldn't do it any sooner. We were still calculating numbers this morning. So in your emails, you'll get a spreadsheet of what David's going over. You get a summary sheet. There's stuff about the Pagoda, which is our second topic. And so you'll have that all in your email. So, but it didn't get to you probably till lunchtime, just because we're still finalizing numbers. Sorry about that, David. Okay, it's you. You're on.
No problem at all. I can go ahead and share my screen. Let me get rid of this here. Okay. So we have been working diligently to make sure we encompass all of the past, present, and future focuses of projects. And currently we have 35 active projects on the CIP roster. And the way the spreadsheet is broken down is to currently highlight the projects that City Council is aware of and is currently on the CIP budget, their funding sources, and then also to identify projects that are not currently on the CIP budget and some funding shortfalls. So as we go through our project, we can see on the project titles, such as City Park Playground, we are adding a playground and a splash pad up there. The status is it's currently out to bid, and it has funding through CDBG of $970,000. Again, we're not going to go through every one of these, but I just wanted to explain one of them so you get a feel of what it looks like as you go down through. As we progress through the projects, we can see that there are some shortfalls and what funding sources those are from, such as the Reading Iron Playground, which is a new project that's just hit the market, and the scope is being developed, but there is some funding shortfalls of $100,000 in CIP. As we progress through the category, we can see towards the totals that we had a approved CIP budget in this line item of $2.125 million. Our planned expenses were $2.155 million, and we have a series of unfunded projects for future of $1.8 million. We're also looking to encompass 15% for inflation, old figures, COVID, and supply chain issues. So we have a total project short fund in our parks budget for CIP of $2.463 million. We broke out the public properties in a separate category because it's funded through a separate line item. But as you progress through the same items, you can see the funded and unfunded projects. As we go into the total compensation in the public properties division, we can see that we had an anticipated CIP budget of 5.750 million with funded expenses of 6.8 and unfunded expenses of 5.1. Ultimately, that leaves us a shortfall right around $8 million. This is where Frank has exemplified that we are splitting the pagoda out. It does fall under public properties, but we want to show this as a separate project so we're not giving too much sticker shock, as Frank says. Currently, we have $1 million that's allocated for research of engineering for the pagoda to include the wall design and the building, roofing, mechanical, and electrical upgrades to the facility. Using a 10% rule, we've estimated that the actual construction costs will be around 6.4 million and 3 million respectively. We also have some neighborhood projects that are active as well, with the 18th Ward, Buttonwood Gateway, street lights and traffic signals. This project line item only has $674,000 allocated with it. And the engineering department is showing an unfunded expenses of around 2.3 million. And finally, we have the police training facility, the special operations group. We do have 500,000 allocated for their line item this year for the design engineering of the facility. And the expectation that it might be around 12 to 15 million in the 2023 budget for the construction. Like Frank said, if anybody has any specific questions about a project that's in your district, we can certainly address that and we can give you some time to digest it. And if you have any questions, I'm definitely welcome to them.
Yeah, no, thank you. And council, I think the goal here today was to show everybody, and we're going to revisit this budget, but to show everybody where there are some funding gaps just in the capital budget itself. And I have a lot of questions as we go back through that in a couple of weeks on some of the detail relevant to the 2022 plan that we finalized. But also, and you can see that's about 8 or 9 million. The pagoda could be 9 million, and a new police training center could be 15. So as we scope out with the administration, the ARPA funds, obviously these shortfalls, or in some of the cases, the pagoda or the new building, will have some impact on what we do with those funds. I think it was important to understand where the capital budget was. I didn't want to get into every project tonight, but that was a really good overview. But if there are any specific questions relevant to the overall funding gap, let's open it up now. And I can't really see anybody, so just please state your name and go forward.
Jeff, this is Marcia.
Yep.
Okay, so first of all, thank you for that snapshot, because I think it helps. If you look at the numbers, you can understand the shortfalls, you can understand the projects. Has the ARP been factored in at all to these as far as the shortfalls go?
What we're sharing this evening is just actually where the current projects are from what's been funded and the costs. We're certainly going to come back to council with some recommendations on how to address that shortfall. I guess before we do that, I think we want to shore up the capital fund, the capital improvement program, making sure these are the projects we want to continue with. Most of them have already started. So once we know these are the projects we want to continue with, we do have some, we are going to recommend ARPA funds. It's questions how much to help shore up the funding gap for those projects.
Okay, and then of course, the comment was made to speak to issues in the district. Obviously, everyone knows that the pagoda is located in District 2, but what I think is more important is that it's been owned by the city for over 100 years, and the city over the years has made investments, but there's been a gap over the last I'd say 18 years, when there were projects that needed to be done, that were proposed, that were never completed due to different administrations. So I'm very glad to see that this administration has stepped forward and identified what the capital needs are and been able to be open about what the dollar amounts look like. Because to preserve a building of that historic significance and that much meaning to the community, there is a heavy lift that needs to happen. And we need to talk about how we can leverage other funding because it is a regional asset. The city has been doing its part for maintaining the building and I think knows what needs to be done. And I see Chief Stout sitting there, and I just want to give a shout out to the Reading Fire Department. That building would not be there if it hadn't been for all the work over the decades that the fire department has done to make sure when there's issues that have come up and have saved that building numerous times. So we just want to thank our firefighters who are still very dedicated in making sure that a wooden structure on top of a mountainside has stayed in existence. I don't know, I know that the mayor has a commitment to this too, so I'm just really glad to see that.
And what's next on the agenda when we finish this will be the pagoda. So we'll have more information to provide
Okay.
council on what we're working towards at the
Okay,
moment.
thank you.
So more to follow momentarily.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any additional comments relevant to the capital budget, just overview?
And if I may, Council President, you know, I don't want to get into a whole details of line by line, like it has been mentioned, but, you know, I'm very transparent and like to be very honest and direct. So in refer to the question from Marsha, yes, you know, some of these projects have been considered to possibly be qualified for some of the ARPA funding. That's when some of the line items that I provided an overview a couple of weeks ago through the administration for ARPA funding expenditures, some of these may qualify for assistance through those. But again, you know, just for the sake of transparency. But we didn't want to get into all those details today.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Additional comments, anyone?
Jeff, I do.
Go ahead, Donna.
Just to ask the chief real quick, the improvements to the Schuylkill and Riverside Fire Company at McKnight and Weiser at McKnight and Cross Street is driving me. Yeah, could you just explain that?
Yeah, we've been working with Dave on this and all and
Mhm. What's it going to be used for at that fire station? Yeah,
there's work that got to be done, the HVAC system.
Okay,
the
okay. How about the roof? Is the roof?
roof is done.
Yeah, so it's the HVAC.
The back wall needs some work.
Okay, okay.
And Dave's been working with us.
I know it's not a huge amount. I just need to be refreshed on that. So thank you.
All right, any additional comments?
Yes,
Okay.
it's Maria.
Go ahead, Maria.
I had a question. For the construction of the new facility for police, for the police academy, David just say gonna cost between 12 and $15 million since the city's not gonna receive the non-resident EIT starting next year, most likely. From where that money is gonna come from? How, I mean, I know the city applied for a loan that hopefully we will get that, but if that's not the case, from where that money is going to come, how the city is going to pay between 12 and $15 million for that facility, if we're not going to
Well-
get the no resident EIT any longer.
Well, yeah, Maria, that's to be determined. Obviously, there would be a couple different channels that need to be pursued, and we're still hopeful that by the end of July, the state legislature is going to open up the commuter tax. I'm very confident that they're going to get that done. I'm just saying that, guys, but it will raise a lot of questions, Maria, but we'll certainly have to look at other resources if we don't have the funds through EIT.
I hope
Obviously,
we get the
will launch it.
EIT, but that's going to be I think personally, that's going to be challenging. I'm going to leave it like that, but I doubt it.
I would just echo Council President that it's much too early to tell on the funding issue, one. Two, we're seeking a grant to help with funding, and we will seek other grant funding opportunities to help with the construction costs. And then lastly, 3, we have a rough estimate, a cost estimate that has gone into the $12 to $15 million projection. The project is out to bid to specifically, I would say, narrow down that cost so that we would have engineering estimates that we could actually act on. What we currently have is not actionable. So we do hope that cost will come in closer at the end to the 10 million than to the 15 million, obviously.
And I'll say it one more time publicly.
Yeah, about
You know, this,
money. And the grant, we don't even know at this point how much we're gonna get. I know that it is for 1 million, but we don't know. Like, it can be from, on the presentation of the grant, it was from 25,000 to 1 million, but there's no guarantee that the
Yeah.
city will get $1 million.
well, and the capital budget's an issue ongoing, Maria. I mean, not only with this large project, but, you know, I'm going to say one more time publicly, the state initiated Act 47 to protect us from the state law Act 111 for the most part, right? It gave us the ability under Act 47 to use commuter tax, which we ended up using for our capital budget. Now, they haven't changed Act 111 as we come out of Act 47. That remains. But what they haven't done is allowed the law that allows us to keep the commuter tax to stay in place. And it just doesn't make any sense. If it made sense in Act 47, it should have made sense out of Act 47. I'm not in Harrisburg. I don't know what these people are doing or thinking. 3/10 of a mil commuter tax is not harm to commuters. And it certainly makes sense in my mind that they should have had this resolved. But if they don't, we'll figure it out. But it just doesn't make sense that our state government, who spends a lot of time monitoring these cities in Act 47, paying for all these oversight groups like PFM, et cetera, you know, unleashes us out of Act 47, but takes those provisions away, which were very helpful and would help us a lot post Act 47. But, you know, we don't control the state legislator. If they don't make that adjustment soon, we'll have to go back to some of our old ways of funding the capital budget, which was either general fund dollars or often debt service. Fortunately, we have a rather level debt service that's not too extensive. I believe it goes out about 10, 11 years yet. So we do have some flexibility, but, you know, we'd rather pay cash than with debt. So. All
Jeff,
right,
this is
any
Mark.
other- Yeah, go ahead.
I'm
Marcia.
sorry. Okay, and just to add to your comments, first of all, the piece about the commuter tax, it's so important that the public knows the disadvantage that we've been placed in, and that continues to be not only for us as a city, but for citywide residents that are all, anyone that's voting, to be able to get to their legislators, let them know how important that is, and to be able to look at how we can leverage through the state association to promote that. That being said, I think this plan is well thought out, because we will look for available funding. To Maria's point, nothing is ever guaranteed, but the point is, we'll be aggressive about grant writing. And, you know, you just keep on doing it. You put the pieces together, figure out what you can get funded through grants, and keep on moving ahead that way. And I think that's the optimistic way to look at it. If we run into deficits, we'll just have to prioritize projects, and that's the way it's been in the past. It's a painful thing to do, but if the state's not going to step up and give us that option for the commuter tax, they're going to be part of the demise of a lot of our physical plant in the city, because that's what was able to keep us moving ahead with the capital projects. I'm hoping for the best, trying to be optimistic, but I think the fact that you have a plan here, which for years that I've been on council, I haven't seen anything so well spelled out. I think that's what's important, that we have a starting place to say, what are the estimated costs? Knowing that we're in a really tight economy now, that prices are going up. These projects probably 5 years ago would not have been as costly, but we're faced with what we are. So we just have to keep moving ahead.
Okay, thank you, Marcia. And I want to thank Frank and the mayor. We've been trying to work closely with them, because I know it's the administration's goal is to get us in as strong a financial footing from a capital and general fund standing coming out of Act 47. So this exercise is part of that. So that will help us a lot moving forward. Are there any additional comments before we move on to the pagoda? All right, if not, we'll thank Jamar and his team, and we'll turn it back over to Frank and let him take it from there.
Great. Thank you, Council President. I'm just going to make a few remarks and then I'll turn it over to Kyle. What I sent earlier in your packet, your email packet, one of them, there were like 4 or 5 attachments. One attachment was recent pagoda projects. And it's good to kind of recap of what we've committed in the last year or so. So just a quick recap. Last year, we committed over $250,000 for traffic improvements, which included but not limited to ADA accessibility, traffic patterns, street widening, and we expanded some increase in parking spaces. And, shored the area up for more security by having access security issues. This year, an RFP was awarded for the Pagoda Wall Engineering Study. The cost has come out to $643,097. Basically, and when I put in a note is there's a lot of geotechnical engineering that's part of this process. And what that includes is really working with the soil, the rock mechanics, the earth minerals that are involved with retaining and repairing the wall. They also will be involved in construction management and inspections and making sure we're in compliance with regulations. In addition, Public Works recently put out an RFP for a building study that will be conducted by structural engineers who will assess the property for mechanical, electrical, and plumbing and historic upgrades. We will be paying for that study with the remainder of funds from, we had $1 million set aside for the engineering study. It came under budget, so there's like $356,000 remaining, so that money can be used to pay for the building study. So as soon as these studies are complete, we will have a better assessment and idea of how to move forward. So that's kind of the quick review. I know Kyle, I don't know if there's some additional stuff that that needs to be provided or any more information.
Well, that's pretty much it. We're going to start this building assessment. We're going to include it in that RFP. We will attach the building feasibility study that they did a few years ago, and they can use that kind of as a guide. So I think that'll save us a little bit of money and then having to do all that research and investigative, digging down into what all the systems are and what's wrong with them. So I think that's a good thing. And like you said, we're paying for that with the leftover money from the wall engineering. So we're about ready to move that forward.
Question, and I don't know, I know it's rough, maybe it's difficult to answer, but is there a rough timeline from when the award to the time a study is completed? I know it's a tough question. There's a lot of factors in there. Is this something that will take the remainder of the year or takes a couple months, or maybe it's such a broad question that doesn't really have an accurate answer? I'm not really just putting it out there.
Yeah, my best guess would be several months, because with the just the uniqueness of that building and the design work that it's going to take engineers to, check out some of those systems and, design work and all that. I think it's not just a normal building because of the historical significance. I think it'll take a little bit longer than one of our normal RFP designs.
That's a good point. I failed to mention in the little summary that the structural engineers are looking at the historic aspects of the building. So there's particular aspects that they're deemed historic, they may open additional funds that may be available. That point well taken. So hopefully these studies are done in time for the 2023 budget. So then we'll have an idea of how to move forward and we'll be able to allocate what is necessary. I know the mayor's on the call, so I don't know if he wants to weigh in, but about our commitment to the pagoda. So what we're committed to continue to use city dollars to address the needs of the pagoda, but we also recognize that it's just more than a city asset, it's a regional asset. So as we put city public money into the pagoda, we're hoping that our regional partners help share with us some financial assistance or some kind of shared responsibility to move forward. But as we get these studies complete, have a full understanding on the needs, we won't have to speculate, and then we know how to move forward. And we plan to share this information with our regional partners and ask to see if we get commitments from them. But that's down the road. We got to see what the studies say first.
Yeah, Frank and I just wanted to acknowledge that you hit it right on the nail. We're gonna turn, for lack of better words, turn every rock possible to make sure that we get the funding necessary to preserve. And I'm gonna steal Marsha's words, to preserve that treasure that we have, and make sure that we preserve it to the best of our abilities for years and generations to come.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Frank and Kyle. Council members, any comments, please?
Yes, Jeff, I still am in the habit of raising my hand, even though I know you can't see me, but that's okay. First of all, thank the administration for really doing a deep dive into this. It's something that needed to be done for years. The last major repair was under the McMahon administration, when the lighting, some of the roofing work was done. We know we have many challenges, but I always like to keep it in perspective. If you were 110 years old and we're bolted to the side of a mountain and we're expecting to have, at least we have 30,000 people going through that building every year when it was fully open before COVID, you're going to be a little bit stressed and tired and you're going to need some work. But it is a regional asset and it is on the historic registry. So we have a lot of potential, and I hoping that our fellow government leaders in the county and the state hear this. Reading's recognized for the pagoda. Berks County's recognized for the pagoda. If you look at any studies that are done, it comes up as being one of the main tourist attractions. I don't like to minimize it just as a tourist attraction because I think it's about the heart and the soul of the city. And the foundation, which Councilwoman Reed and I are part of, will be doing everything we can, working with the city to open up the building, but we need the guidance from Kyle and the city team to know when that's going to be possible. So I think the one clear message to the public is we don't want to deprive you of going into the building, but we also have to make sure that everything's in line with all the work that's going to be done, that there may be accessibility issues. We won't know that until we get more feedback from the contracted engineers and such, and we'll be keeping the public informed. But this is what the public has been asking for. They've been wanting to know what the status of the building is and what the city is going to be doing moving forward.
I would just add, this is another project with a potential for a huge sticker shock, but there are at least federal funding opportunities out there. Frank sends a lot of emails, but about 2 months ago, he sent one that included historic preservation funding as well as rehabilitation funding on the construction side. But first, we need an updated study like this to be able to compete for that funding. So it's well timed that these projects are underway and we'll be able to go after funding help with the construction side.
Jeff, comment, it's
Yeah,
Donna.
go ahead, Donna. Yeah.
And I think as we look at other funding sources to complement the cities, talking about the national possibilities or federal possibilities, certainly there are avenues through associations that support historic buildings that is on a national register. And I think it would be incumbent upon a delegation of us to go down to the National Trust and talk with folks down there, as well as, and we did have the Mr. Curran of Smithsonian. That's not his particular forte at the pagoda, but it is an entree into working with folks at the Smithsonian in architectural specialties and Far Eastern specialties. And of course, certainly in DC with all the associations, there's a National Architects Group and other folks that I think as we look to our capital funding and we look to ARPA and we look at state and county funds, I think there are specialized funds that we can avail ourselves of, but I think it will take some personal interaction, and I'm fairly familiar with DC from my years down there, that I'm certainly willing to try to help work with folks. I've been at the National Trust for Historic Preservation, gotten to know a few people there. So I think we should be working with our congressperson, who at this point is Chrissy Houlihan, and be making direct visits and interactions with those particular folks. And I'll be going down for a week soon, so if you guys want me to do any, we used to call it field producing in the news business, I'd be happy to help.
All right, any additional comments relevant to the pagoda? Okay, great. Well, thank you, Frank and Kyle, Mayor, for keeping this project direct. Obviously, it's got a lot of moving parts. There's a lot in the background as well to get this building up to speed. I think everyone's underlined it very well. You know how the county, look forward to all of us working towards that to preserve it for many generations to come. I think that's very, very important. So thank you. If we're going to move on, then we're going to move on to our public works update. Just a real broad overview of what might be going on in public works as part of our public works committee. I don't know, Frank, is Kyle. I'll turn it over to you.
Well, Council President, looking at the two bullet items that are remaining accomplishments and report on staffing levels and needs. For the accomplishments, for the administrative report we provide council twice a month, we have those listed there. So we can go over those if we want to. I can look up the report and go over those, but those are something that's part of the administrative report. But we can, I'm looking for feedback on what exactly, like, do you want us to provide something in addition, or we can go over what was provided in the report? Just looking for a little guidance.
No, actually, I mean, if we had some big items in front of us, which actually Capital and Pagoda were, so part of the committee. So anything here that you guys think might be relevant that we may be aware of, if the accomplishments are already covered, we don't need to reach for them. If there's any critical path items you don't need to be aware of, just anything you guys feel might be relevant that we need to know about what works. Otherwise, most of the stuff we're talking about.
Okay, like there are stuff that happens in between one report and another, so we'll keep that. We can bring those items up so you have timely information. The other item, report on staffing levels and needs. The goal, and I have to look at the agenda they've set for next month, but I have the Human Resources Department currently listing all the vacant positions and staffing level needs for all the departments. So I was hoping that I could focus more of the whole city-wide to have a list of all the vacancies, the staffing needs, and what we want to provide council our plan to increase recruitment and retention. So I'm taking more of a citywide approach to it. So I wanted to first start with how do we address the current vacancies, and then peel off maybe to a second segment of, okay, here's are some staffing needs we may need in addition. So it'll be something we don't spring upon you in October in a budget session. We can start having some ideas what that looks like when we come up with the budget. But I was going to have those as two separate issues when Human Resources is set for their next meeting, if that's okay. Or we can,
yeah,
I don't have the agenda.
That's fine, Frank. Yeah, I think that's fine, Frank. We reestablished these committees this year. So finding the right need is a little time. Again, anytime you see these on the agenda, if there's little items that you feel, or little projects you feel we need to be aware of, we're not normally apprised on, it's a good time, or if there's an upcoming project, but it's no longer right. And just like in the finance report updates, I always believe a real brief executive summary is the best thing. We get the finance report sometimes that drive you nuts because A, I can't even read the numbers, and B, to try to figure out what they're saying isn't always that easy either. So I think you're fine. I will look forward to that update on staffing levels in a couple of weeks when we do HR.
Jeff,
Council, you're all right with that? Right? Yeah, go ahead, Linda.
what that agenda item, report on staffing levels and needs, what that does is recognize that Public Works has been sort of stripped bare over the years, especially when we went in 47. And like what I was going for is to consider their needs on a monthly basis. Like, where are they short-staffed?
Yeah.
Where do they need?
And that's
So
certainly,
what we're hearing from Frank. Yeah, go ahead, Linda.
we're going to address that. One of the things we want to address too is some of the vacancies. We do have some vacancies we want to fill first, but you're absolutely right. there's a lot of additional staffing needs, particularly in public works. So we'll be able to present something in the very near future with that.
Okay, great, great. Council, any other comments on that section? Otherwise, we're gonna move on to community and economic development. All right, Frank, I don't know if Jamal's on with us. Just
Yes,
a brief update on these categories here.
Sure, absolutely. For the community and economic development, what the part of the packet I sent this afternoon has a spreadsheet and a diagram that Jamal was put together. And it's about the CDBG action plan and about unprogrammed funds. So I'm going to turn over to Jamal, I believe. Yep, Jamal, you're on. So I don't know if you have the ability or if you want to share the document that we provided council earlier.
Good evening, everyone. Frank, at this point, I don't think I have the ability to share. I'm looking at the icons down at the bottom of the screen, and I have chat, raise hands, and questions and answers. So, Linda, if you would give me a permission to share, I'll be more than happy to do so. Yes.
Yeah, I cannot do that at this point. That's not one of the options.
Okay. So,
Move you, chat to you, or hide you.
And unfortunately, my
Want me to pull up the
laptop
document
lost
for
connection.
him?
I can't. I just lost connection, everything. So I can't
Yeah,
share.
I can't share from here.
Yeah, I thought I was be able to, but I have no connection now, so I can't access only by my phone.
Can I make a
Alright,
suggestion? Because this is important to be able to look at. Council President, can we defer this to a later date? Because I don't really like muddling through things without having everything in front of us.
I would agree.
We can, if the administration doesn't mind. I don't mind deferring this maybe to our next finance committee meeting. If everyone's okay with that.
Are you guys okay with that?
Yes, absolutely. We apologize. It's just,
Right.
I thought either he would be able to, but my laptop, I thought if I get in, but I agree without the
I'm
body.
looking at the, yeah,
talking about. Yes,
I'm looking
be
at the
prepared.
document, but you don't want me sharing it. All right. All right. So with that, let's move on to, well, I guess all we have left is an executive session. But before we do that, council, there's some items we need to talk about. First of all, I believe today was the deadline for our candidates for District 1. Is that correct, Linda?
Yes, it is.
All right, so we need to schedule interviews. What's the thought from the body? What are the thoughts? Should we try to squeeze that in on a weeknight coming up? We don't have a lot of time. What's our deadline, Linda?
The sooner the better, Jeff.
Yeah,
Maybe next
Mhm.
Tuesday or Wednesday.
next Tuesday night.
Well, Tuesday night, well, that's going to be a problem. How about Wednesday?
Wednesday?
I could make Wednesday happen, but you have to check with everyone else and prefer to be in person, obviously, to do this. Wednesday.
All day next week.
So let's tentatively put that time, the District 1 candidates. I believe there were 6. I know one was submitted a little late today. I don't know if the body will consider that or not. Let us know what time to get it.
If someone submitted late today, then there's a total of 8. I received another one this afternoon before 4.
How late was the late one?
You did receive one today?
Yes, I received one this afternoon.
Okay, as long as they're received today. Okay. I think we received today. It's fine, good. I'm not hearing any disagreements.
I think we should do a Saturday morning.
Ugh.
Oh,
Oh, we
okay.
can do Wednesday
Okay.
night. Saturday morning is tough.
I'm just, I just have no time.
Yeah, Saturday morning is good. Let's shoot for next Wednesday evening. Figure 5 to 7, 7:30.
Okay.
Anything else for public discussion? All right, if not, Lou, can you clear out the physical rooms and the Zoom room as well, so we can move into an executive session with Michael? The topics are relevant to, can you remind me again? Yeah, both related to sales, is that correct?
Yeah.
There you go, thank you.
Yeah, hang on.
People, we had 6 good ones. I wonder who the other